I think you should take the data and make an informed decision based on how you have assessed the maturity of your children.
Welcome to Tired Parents Club, a safe place to share, laugh, vent, and talk about the ups and downs of raising the littlest versions of ourselves. We are your hosts, Kevin Pinto. We have Sierra Langford. How you doing, Sierra?
Hello, hello.
Sweet. And today we're talking about cell phones, technology, and we do have a special guest. So, Sierra, you want to introduce him?
Yes, cell phones technology. It's not going away, is it? I think it's here to stay. Today we have Dr. Desmond Patton with the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for speaking with us today about this really important topic that's just ever evolving, right? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing at the University of Pennsylvania when it comes to this?
Absolutely. It's wonderful to be with you all this afternoon. So I'm Desmond Patton. I'm the 31st Penn Integrates Knowledge University professor at the University of Pennsylvania. I've been an academic for 14 years, and I have traditionally studied the role and impact of social media, AI, and emerging technologies on the well-being of young people. And so in my research, the conduit to social media is usually through the cell phone. And so I've spent many years talking to young people all over the country about how they access social media through their cell phone, the role that cell phones play, and how they construct their identity, how they make meaning of their life, and kind of the opportunities that having these emerging technologies can have for them, and some of the challenges as well.
So, and you talked about, I mean, we talked about earlier how you don't have any kids. So what made you so interested in this particular subject?
Yeah, I love this question. So I'm a gun violence researcher, and I'm also a social worker. And so uh, the way in which I approach new topics is through the lived experiences of young people. And so, this is, almost 14, 15 years ago at this point, but young people were spending an enormous amount of time online, and they were using platforms in ways that we had not heard or seen before. And in particular, creating conflict, sharing conflict, and it was moving from the technology that they were using to their reality, to their physical world in ways that could lead to fights or shootings or even death. And so my connection to this came from, young people being impacted by emerging technologies, and there being a gap in research around the ways in which emerging technologies shape the lived experience for young people.
Wow. So kind of just to kind of build off what you said there, just the virtual relationships or virtual communication having that real world impact. Would you say that's what adults maybe, most misunderstand about, kids' relationships with their phones? What have you seen there?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest challenge that I think we have is that parents have treated technology as this other thing, this virtual, whether it's a physical thing that you hold in your hand or something that you log on to, but they don't treat it seriously. It doesn't feel like real life. And there's all these conversations around the performance that happens on technology and that it's not really real. And there is some truth to that. We know that there's a lot of performativity that happens online. But what we have learned from talking to young people is that the digital life is real life. And so when I talk about emerging technologies and social media in particular, I always talk about it as being the new neighborhood. We have to understand technology as an environmental context, not something that is purely virtual and othered, because young people are living their lives online. They are experiencing the world. They are connecting with other young people. They're making mistakes. They're having opportunities. They're being harmed, all within the things that we hold in our hand. And so it's critically important to understand the cell phone as environmental context.
So is there like a certain age? I guess that's going to be a common question, right? When should we introduce a cell phone? Should we introduce them to them at a younger age or a little bit later? Like, what do you think?
I love this question. And I always tell parents, you are the expert on your child. And so what I would suggest is that we can take data points, right? Some people say should give a child a cell phone when they're able to communicate or when they are in middle school. I think you should think of these things as being data points that help you to make the right decision for your family. Because the reality is that children mature at different developmental time points. And so for a young girl, they may be ready and responsible enough to handle a cell phone at an earlier age than say a young boy. But that's going to be dependent on your family context, your resources, and most importantly, the types of conversations that you have with children about their digital life. So I'm never going to say there's a certain age. I think you should take the data and make an informed decision based on how you have assessed the maturity of your children.
Okay, yeah, because me and Sierra have talked about it. Obviously,
We got time.
yeah, I'm 9 months, so
I have a 3-year-old, so
and she knows what a phone is.
we got some time.
Exactly.
I like to think.
Now she does know what a phone is, right? She doesn't know really, but she sees it. She's like, oh, something shiny.
Excellent
She loves to
question.
grab them.
Yeah.
That actually leads me to one of my questions. That's an excellent point, Kevin. What roles do parents and caregivers play in modeling healthy digital behavior? They're always watching, right?
Yeah, this is such an important piece to this puzzle, right? Because your children are watching you. They're watching how you use the cell phone. So, for example, if you are having dinner and you're always on your phone, scrolling through social media, or if you're constantly talking on your phone, or they watch your reactions to things that are happening on your phone, whether it is excitement because you saw this really cool video on TikTok, or if you look sad or angry because there's some communication that you received because you're checking your email. And so the question becomes, what do you want to model to your children? I've talked to lots of parents and families where they have a no phone zone when it's time for dinner. Everyone puts their phone in a basket and they agree that they're not going to use the phone during dinner. I think this type of modeling behavior is really healthy. And what I'm hoping is that parents and children have those conversations about, like, you should be asking yourself, what kind of life do you want to have? Right? Do you want to have a life where you're connected to the phone, or do you want to have a life where the human connection is the most important thing? And that's for you to decide.
Sweet. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, Dr. Patton. We'll be right back with more Tired Parents Club. Welcome back to Tired Parents Club. We are talking about cell phones and technology with our special guest, Mr. Dr. Patton. So I let my kids watch stuff, right? I don't know if this is an iPad conversation, right? It's cell phones, it's technology in general. We watch, Miss Rachel. We give her times to watch that.
Yeah.
And you were just saying that you go around to restaurants and you see kids distracted?
Yeah. So, we go out to eat with our son, and I will see other families with their children on iPads. We don't do that. That's a personal choice that we make. What in your research, what have you seen with behavior like that?
Yeah, I it's important to me to take a non-judgmental approach to what I see in the world because parents are making difficult decisions every day with how to best care for their children. And so it is very common to be in a public space and to see a parent handing over a iPad or a phone to calm down their child or to give them something helpful to engage in a public space where there might be lots of noise. And I think this is really this is a healthy conversation because there are lots of parents in which they may have a child who has a need where being in a public space is actually really hard. And so, the parent may give their child some headphones and a video to watch, and that is calming. And it brings joy to the child who's able to engage, and the parents are able to have conversations and to remind themselves that they are adults as well. And on the flip side, it can become a crutch, right? You become accustomed to using these tools as the only method in which we can calm our child down, right? And so I think it's best to one, be in conversation with your general practitioner or your pediatrician about the use of emerging technologies in these public spaces, and then to think about what your family's needs are given your circumstances, and to just really take a non-judgmental approach, because you parents are all just doing the best you can, and so I want to allow for the space to do the best you can and to have enough information and data to make those decisions.
And we
That is, oh,
No, you're fine. Well, we've talked about this on the show before.
Yes.
Is that parenting is it could be such a judging area. Always someone's got an opinion about how you should raise your kids. Back in my day, kind of thing. And then and then back in our day, like, we didn't have that technology readily available. So yeah, we had to interact, and our poor parents, they had to listen to us scream and shout, and we didn't have that distraction. So it's hard not to want to distract your kid with something like, again, Miss Rachel or their favorite show. So it's hard to judge. It's just the world we're in.
Oh, I'm judging.
yeah.
I'm kidding. I've totally done it myself. I mean, we try to avoid using it. But I've totally, especially on a plane, we have pulled out Miss Rachel on a plane because we're in this little tube for 2.5 hours with a toddler who missed his nap.
Yeah.
And you don't want a screaming toddler disrupting everyone else, which I guess you would hope people would understand if that happens. But yeah, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, and how I see it is it's not all shows are bad, right? They are educating. Like, I grew up on Sesame Street, right? Like, that was educational. So I'm not gonna, sit here and judge somebody for letting their kid watch educational shows.
And they're bringing back Reading Rainbow too. Did you watch Reading Rainbow?
Yeah.
I did watch Reading Rainbow. I wasn't the biggest fan. I had a shorter attention span, but I liked, a little bit. And then I was gonna say bright colors and stuff, but that also had bright colors. I think that's what all kids are into.
Snaps.
If you could just sing it for us, that'd be great.
No, I'm not doing that. I know you want me to.
No, for sure. So I know we're talking about young kids, and that's because that's where our mindsets are, right? But I guess in middle school, high school, we talked about getting our phones. I got my phone in middle school. It was, I had a sliding Nokia phone. Did you say you had a flip phone?
Yes, I was about 13, 14 years old going into high school.
Yeah.
I got a phone and I shared it with my sister, and it was also a flip phone.
You shared it, yeah. And then if you texted or went on the internet, you'd get yelled at.
Yes, because when you texted it, you were getting billed for text back in the day. So you have mom and dad going, "Stop texting."
Dr. Patton, when did you get your first phone?
Sure. I got my first phone when I went to college. So I'm an elder millennial, so I graduated high school in 2000 and got a phone in 2000.
Do you think you would have been allowed to get one in middle school?
No, absolutely not. My parents, I'm from Gastonia, I grew up in a very restricted environment. These are the things you're supposed to do. And so I definitely would not have gotten a cell phone. I got a cell phone when I was 18 years old. And it was funny that I had the same number that I had 26 years ago.
Yeah, my number hasn't changed.
Looking back, are you how do you feel about getting a cell phone at 18? Are you glad? Are you glad you were able to go that long without one, or now that it's such a part of everyone's lives?
I'm so grateful that I did not grow up in a social media era. I am a Black gay man who had complicated high school experiences that were already complicated without the use of technology. They would have been exacerbated during that time. So I'm super grateful, but I also went away for college. And so being able to call my family, call my friends, to begin to use text message. So I love that I grew up in this time period, because I had access to technology at a really important developmental period, and I felt old enough to kind of figure out how to make those decisions. But then there were also back then it was about, as you all have alluded to, using too many minutes. So I would always run up my minutes or engage in too many text messages, right? I didn't understand what was happening or my use. And I think that is an older use case, but we have similar use cases now just in terms of how much time we spend on our phones, how much time we spend on media.
That's an excellent point. And the phone tells you, right? Doesn't it say you've spent this many hours
should
on
take a
your
break.
phone?
Yeah,
don't tell
I get
me,
an
don't tell
update
me.
weekly, and it's very scary.
So I guess, man, that opens up so many things almost in a way. So maybe we'll look like a pros and cons, right? What were the pros of having a phone, in middle school, as when, again, our thing was for safety, right? Our parents wanted to call us when we were somewhere. That was a thing, but now it's hard to even find phones that are that simple.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what do you think?
So I think there are a number of pros to having cell phones. I think you've alluded to the safety issue, which I think is a really important one. We continue to live in a country where gun violence happens in schools, and parents have been really grateful to be able to access their children when these really scary moments are happening. What we also learn is that a lot of young people are trying on new identities by being able to access information that might be harder to access, right? And so I'm thinking a lot about young people who are marginalized, young people who may have a mental health condition and are not quite comfortable yet to process that information with other people, but they're willing to do it within an emerging technology context. And that's been really helpful because for some young people, they're then able to think about the kind of questions that they might want to answer or to have answered by their parent or another adult. I'm also thinking about the young person who has a mental health challenge or invisible uh, disability, right? That the phone can be developed in a way to give them a resource, right? So oftentimes, young people who are dyslexic can put different apps on their phone that allow them to read as if someone has a normative brain. And so I think that there are many ways in which a phone can be helpful, but those same features can be used in really harmful ways as well.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess that does bring up in a way, and you talked about it being a gay man, right? With bullying and stuff, is that just something that is worse now with technology than that you think? Or is it worse or better with it now? Like, I'm sure bullying is, I guess, different than how it would have been, again, back in our day. But, is it worse?
It's hard to determine if it's worse. I definitely think that it's amplified, and I definitely think that it can happen faster, right? And so, back when we were going to school, if you had an issue with someone, you would have a face-to-face conversation, and there could be an opportunity in which a friend or an adult could intervene and kind of quell that situation before it became something that was bigger than both parties anticipated. Now we don't have that mitigating help, right? And so now you post something online, you could send someone a text, it can be taken out of context, scaled to hundreds of people, thousands of people, and people that you don't know are commenting on those posts or resharing your text messages or posting about those messages.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been something that for you, it was really tiny, really small, but now has become extremely big. This is the kind of trend that we have seen over the years that is become a really scary part of this technology. We also have to have conversations about suicide and conversations about suicide and planning suicide that can be discussed on platforms, shared, or people learn about how other people have talked about suicide as well. And so again, the container around it has, I think, amplified behaviors that were typically had in face-to-face interactions.
Yeah, that's so true, right? I mean, that's what makes me nervous about while having a phone in the future. And, who knows how phones are going to be that day. It could just be like a contact lens that you put in your eye and now your phone works.
You don't want your child to be sheltered, but you also want to protect them.
Yeah, 100%. And this is why my approach is just start talking about these things early. It's not too early once of course your children are able to have communication with you, but to have the conversations about tech, about digital life and not waiting until they're in middle school and to try really hard to keep an open mind about what's happening online, to ask questions about, what do you like to see online, or who do you talk to online, or what are your friends talking about online? I think as early as parents can start having these conversations, we can actually help to structure healthy digital lives for young people. Because one of the things that, I think is hovering over us is the conversation around cell phone bans, right? But if we take away the opportunity to teach about digital life, to educate about digital life, to explain about digital life. Once your child is 18, they can go buy a phone themselves, then where's the education then if we've already banned it at 16? So these are the common conversations I think we need to be having both in the home, in schools, in school districts, and in your local cities.
And as a previous child myself, I feel like you're also gonna find a way.
Yeah.
If you're gonna hide it from your kid, they're gonna find a way to get a hold of something that you don't want. And I just feel like kids also we naturally want to fight against our parents and go against the grain. So all right, we're gonna take another break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tired Parents Club, where today we're discussing cell phones and everything technology. We have with us Dr. Patton with the University of Pennsylvania, and we had just talked about cell phone bans in particular. So I know a lot of school districts across the country, they have come out now and just banned cell phones in the classroom. What are your thoughts on that when it comes to cell phones in the room and learning?
Yeah, I'm mixed on this. And as an academic and researcher, I always think that we should take an evidence-based approach to making these really big decisions, right? And so the question that I would always have is, what is the evidence that suggests for your particular school that having a cell phone ban is actually going to be helpful and generative for the building? In some instances, that could be true, right? So there are some schooling environments where it is abundantly clear that violence happens when folks have access to social media through cell phones, and it's really hard for the administrators and the teachers to be able to intervene in real time. I can understand conversations around cell phone bans in cases where you have quantitative or qualitative data that suggests that you really need to do this. What I'm concerned about is that when we have a ban without data, we are also missing our opportunity to talk to people about their digital life. And we're not creating and harnessing young children who can then become adults who have really thoughtful ways around how they engage digital life. Because the reality is that the issues with cell phones are not just for kids. We probably know an adult who is doing something poorly with their cell phone. And we want to help people have a healthy relationships with technology. And if you have a ban, then and it doesn't necessarily introduce education and literacy and opportunities for young people just to bring conversations to you around the cell phone, because cell phones aren't going anywhere. Technology isn't going anywhere. So banning it, I'm just not sure that is always the right decision for every school.
Yeah, there's a way to embrace it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What have you seen in the classroom? What have you seen with your students?
Yeah, I mean, it is mixed. So, I teach at Penn, I teach an undergraduate class, and most of my students are on their cell phone. I've tried to develop strategies where the cell phone is a part of the educational experience, right? And so I teach courses on joy, and I want students to share with me pictures that make them feel joyful. And so I have them get on their cell phone, scroll through the photos, send me a message with the photos. I put them on the big screen, and then we do thematic analysis around themes around joy. I have found that including it in the educational experience is helpful. However, I also have colleagues who ban all technology in the classroom, and they're having a great experience as well. So this is why I think this is why I sit in the middle, because I think your students, You know what you're teaching, you have the environment, you have the data. Make an informed decision about the kind of experiences you want to have based on who you are, the classroom that you're trying to cultivate, and what you think is most important for your students to be learning.
Cool. Hey, we only have probably about 30 seconds left.
Oh, no.
What last advice, I guess, do you have for parents and dealing with, cell phones with their kids?
I feel like there's a lot of scary stuff circulating, and I want you to know that I think things are going to be okay. Have conversations with your children about all technology. Start young, find ways to bring in literacy, have the hard conversations, but also understand that you are the expert on your family and on your children, and that is most important. So I'm hopeful that we can start structuring these kind of conversations that will lead to healthy digital lives for our young people.
Well, thank you so much. You were fantastic.
Thank you.
We learned so much from you, and hopefully our viewers will learn something as well.
Yes.
So thank you again for your time, and we will be back for more Tired Parents Club.
Yes.
Thank you
We
for
get
having me.
sleep.
Yeah.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.